I want to go back to a question that you asked earlier about this panel. Our leadership in Africa looks much like this panel, if not worse. Every year when we have the AU summit, you don't see a woman in the leadership of Africa, and that says a lot about the state of our continent. Agenda 2063 should not only be about talk. It should be more than that. When you look at Africa as a continent, I mean, I work on women's rights, and a lot of what I do focuses on issues like female genital mutilation and child marriage. In Africa, 29 countries practice female genital mutilation. There are 200 million women globally living with FGM, and almost every country in Africa practices child marriage. When you subject a girl to child marriage, you've subjected her to a life of planned poverty. And let me explain what I mean by that. When a girl gets married at the age of 15, like I did, you've taken her out of school, and she misses out on opportunities to build a career for herself. And if she ends up working, she ends up working as a market vendor or other jobs like that where she will not earn an income. If Africa is serious about Agenda 2063, education for girls needs to be a right rather than a privilege. And Mr. President, as you you're about to take on the chairmanship of the African Union, as a young woman from Africa, a lot of the issues that we are tackling, we are taking the lead when it comes to tackling FGM. For decades, the West has been talking about ending FGM and child marriage, when us as Africa are not doing the talking. When young women from Africa who have suffered these practices stood up and said, this is our issue and we want to take the lead when it comes to ending it, what we continue to hear from the West is we are not capable enough of handling our own issues. When it comes to funding, they would rather fund an organization based in New York or in London, or giving a black girl in Africa the money to handle her own issues. Africa needs to wake up if we're serious about development. And we can't continue relying on the West when it comes to tackling our own issues. So that's why I think, back to the question that you asked, can you remind me of what?
The question was, if women have been proven to be better at managing resources and investing them, or repaying when they owe,
yeah,
why is it that we are not seeing a lot of those practices being factored into the way we do things as African, rather than keep on believing that foreign aid must come in or investors from elsewhere must do that, when we have more women in Africa and crowd financing?
I think not only crowd financing, but one of the reasons why we've been considered as the poor continent is because we've held back 50% of our population.
Ah, you mean the women who are actually more than 50%?
Exactly. So
yeah,
if a continent wants to progress, while you continue to hold back more than 50% of your population, how do you expect to get anywhere? When it comes to economically, when it comes to our politics, we continue to talk about gender parity. We continue to talk about having more women in political positions, when all we do is tokenize women. Like, for instance, in this panel, let's decide to have 2 token women to represent the voices of women, when it shouldn't be like that. We are more than 50% of this continent's population. Yeah. And we don't hold 3% of your brain. We actually have the same brain size as you do, if not more. So it's very, very important that Africa start looking at us as just token women that need to be in cabinet, or token women that need to be on a panel like this, but rather women have shown and proven, like you said, that they can manage better. When you go to every household, it's not normally the man that manages a lot of the things that happen in the house. True. All of the men on this panel know, if you're married, your wife is the one that keeps everything together in a household.
Oh, come on, don't rub it in now. It's painful as it is, but I understand what you mean.
And our mothers, like all of us, we know the strength of the African woman. So for Agenda 2063 to become a reality in this continent, it can't be about talk. It needs to be about putting our money where our mouth is.
Yeah.
And African leaders, President Sisi, one thing I am going to ask you is that when you become the chairman of the African Union, put money in funding issues related to women. The African Union, for instance, based on what I heard, has a budget of about $100,000 to women's issues.
Yeah.
And we can't achieve Agenda 2063 with a budget size like that.
Wow.
For someone like me organizing the first Africa Summit on FGM and child marriage, the funding we've received so far only came from the West. We can't find a single African donor that would support what we are doing when these are issues that affect your sisters, your daughters, and your mothers.
Wow. Your Excellency, I think your blueprint has just been completed by this young woman right here. Your time at the African Union will be very, very challenging indeed. And I hope, I see you're taking notes, so when we close, I'll come back to you, please, to just respond, because I don't think we are going to be allowed out of this venue if His Excellency doesn't give an answer and a commitment that we will get those issues addressed.